Ethan Walker lay on the roof of his modest suburban home, gazing up at the night sky. It was a habit he'd picked up as a kid, back when he'd first become fascinated by the stars. There was something comforting about the vastness above, a sense of peace that no earthly problem could touch. The stars had always felt like old friends, distant but familiar, and each night he'd look up, hoping to catch something extraordinary. Tonight was one of those particularly clear evenings where the Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light. The city was far enough away that the glow didn't drown out the starlight, and Ethan had the perfect vantage point from his rooftop, wrapped in his blanket with a notebook by his side. Sometimes he'd sketch constellations or jot down notes on celestial events, though he wasn't an astronomer by any means. It was just a hobby, a way to feel connected to something bigger. But tonight felt different. The air was cooler than usual for early summer, and a strange energy seemed to buzz just below the surface of the night. Ethan felt it in his bones, though he couldn't explain why. There was a tension in the air, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon, though the skies were clear. As he traced the familiar patterns of Orion and Taurus with his eyes, something unusual caught his attention. A flash of bright blue light, much closer than any star or satellite he'd ever seen, streaked across the sky. Ethan sat up, heart skipping a beat. This wasn't the usual meteor or shooting star. It moved too fast, too erratically, almost as if it were zigzagging through the atmosphere. "What the hell?" he muttered to himself, rubbing his eyes as if to clear away some hallucination. But it was still there, growing brighter, more erratic and closer. The object, whatever it was, suddenly stopped in midair, hovering just above the tree line on the far side of the field that bordered his house. It was no more than a few hundred feet away, pulsating with a strange, rhythmic light. Ethan's heart raced. This wasn't natural. He'd spent years watching the night sky, and nothing like this had ever happened before. His instincts screamed at him to get off the roof and hide, but something else, a burning curiosity, kept him glued in place. He couldn't tear his eyes away. The light intensified, then dimmed slightly as the object began to descend. Ethan swallowed hard, his mouth dry, as the ship, or was it a ship, landed silently in the field. The craft itself was unlike anything he'd ever seen. A sleek, silvery structure that seemed to hum with energy. Its surface reflected the moonlight in a way that made it look almost liquid, shifting and shimmering as though alive. There were no windows or visible engines, just a seamless body that glowed faintly with an ethereal light. Ethan's breath came in shallow bursts. He wasn't sure if he should run, call someone, or stay perfectly still. His body was frozen in place, teetering between fear and fascination. Then, without warning, a door appeared on the side of the ship. No hinges, no sound, just an opening that revealed a soft blue glow from within. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as a figure emerged from the light, stepping out of the craft with a grace that was almost unnatural. She was unlike anyone, or anything, he had ever seen. Tall, elegant, and otherworldly. Her skin shimmered in the moonlight, tinted a soft lavender hue, almost like the reflection of twilight on water. Her hair, impossibly long, floated gently around her as if unaffected by gravity, shifting between shades of deep blue and green with every movement. But it was her eyes that held Ethan's attention. Large, almond-shaped and glowing with a mesmerizing violet light, like twin galaxies swirling in their depths. For a moment, neither of them moved. Ethan's mind raced, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. This was impossible. Aliens weren't real, were they? The figure, this alien girl, took a step forward, her gaze never leaving his. Her presence was powerful yet calming, like standing in the eye of a storm. She raised her hand, palm out, as if in a gesture of peace. "You," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, carrying an otherworldly resonance. "I need you." Ethan blinked, unable to process her words. Her voice seemed to echo in his mind, resonating far deeper than simple sound. His first instinct was to ask what she meant, but his mouth wouldn't move. He felt rooted to the spot, as if her presence alone had taken hold of his very thoughts. She took another step closer, her gaze intense yet gentle. "You are important, Ethan Walker." Hearing his name come from her lips jolted him back to reality, or at least whatever version of reality this was. How do you know my name?" he finally managed to croak out, his voice barely above a whisper. "I have been searching for you," she replied, her voice softer now, almost sad. "There isn't much time. You must come with me." Ethan's mind reeled. Come with her? Go where? He opened his mouth to protest, to ask 1,000 questions, but before he could utter a word, the air around him seemed to shift. It was as if gravity itself had changed. His body lifted off the roof, weightless and light, as an invisible force pulled him toward the ship. "Wait, what's happening?" Ethan shouted, panic setting in as he rose higher and higher, the rooftop shrinking beneath him. But the alien girl didn't answer. She merely watched him with those luminous eyes, a look of quiet determination on her face. The force pulling him wasn't painful, but it was unstoppable, guiding him toward the craft like a gentle current. Ethan's world blurred as he crossed the threshold of the ship, his senses overwhelmed by a soft, pulsating hum that seemed to come from every direction at once. His vision flickered, and the last thing he saw was the alien girl stepping inside behind him, her gaze never wavering from his. Then, everything went dark. When Ethan woke again, it was to a strange, calming warmth and the faint hum of the ship's systems. He lay on a smooth surface, surrounded by walls that glowed with an organic light that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced, and yet, it didn't feel threatening. It was almost peaceful. Still, his heart raced as the memories came flooding back. His abduction, the alien girl, the mysterious ship. He bolted upright, his mind scrambling to make sense of everything. But before he could even take in his surroundings, a familiar voice echoed softly through the chamber. "Do not be afraid, Ethan Walker. You are safe." He turned to see the alien girl standing a few feet away, her expression calm, but her eyes still burning with that strange intensity. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice shaky. "Why did you take me? What's going on?" The alien girl stepped forward, her movements graceful and fluid, like she was gliding across the floor. She stopped just a few feet from him, her hands clasped in front of her. "My name is Arya," she said, "and I need your help." Ethan stared at her, trying to process the enormity of her words. "Help? What kind of help could you possibly need from me?" Arya's gaze softened, and for the first time Ethan saw something in her eyes that unsettled him. Urgency, even fear. "Because," she said quietly, "you're the only one who can save my world." Ethan sat up abruptly, his mind still spinning. The soft glow of the walls, the faint hum of the ship, and the alien presence of Arya. It all felt like a dream, a bizarre, vivid dream. But as he rubbed his temples and tried to ground himself, he knew none of this was an illusion. His heart raced as he looked around. The room was strange, yet oddly familiar. The walls pulsed with a soft blue light, as if they were alive, breathing in rhythm with the ship. The air felt different too, cleaner, cooler, with a faint scent of something unidentifiable, like ozone after a storm. The surfaces were smooth and seamless, metallic yet soft to the touch. The technology, if it could be called that, was unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth. Arya stood by the far wall, her long flowing hair gently moving in the weightless environment. She looked at him with those luminous violet eyes, which seemed to pierce straight through him. She wasn't human, that much was obvious, but there was something in her gaze that was undeniably compassionate, human-like in a way that unnerved him. Ethan scrambled to his feet, trying to maintain some sense of control. His legs felt shaky, and his head swirled with 1,000 questions. "Where am I? What is this place? What did you do to me?" Arya's expression remained calm, though Ethan sensed a tension behind her serene demeanor. "You're aboard my ship, the Unseen. I brought you here because time is running out, and you are essential to what comes next." Ethan's eyes darted around the room, trying to process everything. The word ship hung in his mind, feeling so surreal and distant. This wasn't just any ship. It was an alien spacecraft, something beyond his wildest imagination. He shook his head. "Why? Why me? I'm just a guy. I don't even—" Arya cut him off gently, her voice soft but commanding. You're not just anyone, Ethan. You've always felt different, haven't you? As if something was missing or out of place, like there was a connection you couldn't explain. Her words hit him like a blow to the chest. Ethan froze. She wasn't wrong. All his life, he had felt like an outsider, like there was something more to the world than what met the eye. He had never been able to explain it, not even to himself. It was part of the reason he spent so much time stargazing, looking for answers in the vastness above, but he had never thought it meant anything, just idle dreams, the stuff of science fiction. I don't understand, he stammered, backing away slightly. What are you talking about? What does this have to do with me? Arya took a deep breath, as if gathering her thoughts. Your world is just one of many, Ethan. The universe is vast, far larger than you or any human can comprehend. And in that vastness, there are ancient forces, energies, that shape reality itself. My people, the Illyrians, once had access to this energy, but over time, we lost the ability to control it. Our civilization has been searching for a way to reclaim that power for centuries. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. This was too much. It was impossible. Ancient energies, lost civilizations. It sounded like something ripped straight from a sci-fi novel. But the ship, the technology, the very presence of Arya made it clear that this was no fantasy. So what does that have to do with me? He asked, his voice tight. Arya stepped closer, her eyes locking onto his. You are the key, Ethan. You possess something my people need, a dormant energy within you, something your world has forgotten. We believe it lies deep within certain individuals on Earth, passed down through generations, and you are one of those rare individuals. Ethan's mind reeled. Energy? In me? That's insane. I don't have any powers or special abilities. I'm just a normal guy. Arya's expression softened as she approached him, placing a hand on his arm. You're more than that, Ethan. I can feel the energy inside you. It's faint now, but with my help, I can awaken it. He stepped back, instinctively pulling away from her touch. This is crazy. Even if what you're saying is true, why would I help you? I don't know anything about your world, your people. I didn't ask to be part of this. Arya's eyes darkened, and for the first time, Ethan saw a flicker of desperation in her gaze. Because my world is dying, she said quietly. Our sun is collapsing, and without the energy that you carry, we have no way to save it. If we fail, millions of lives will be lost. Her words hung in the air like a weight, pressing down on Ethan's chest. He felt a surge of emotions, fear, anger, confusion, but above all, a strange sense of responsibility. He hadn't asked for any of this, but how could he ignore what she was telling him? If it was true, then she was asking him to help save an entire civilization. How do I know I can trust you? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Arya hesitated, her gaze softening once more. I can't force you to trust me, Ethan, but I can show you what's at stake. If you let me, I'll help you understand the power you hold and why it's so important. Ethan swallowed hard, his mind a whirlwind of uncertainty. He didn't know what to believe, but something in Arya's eyes, a vulnerability, a truth, stirred something deep inside him. He had always wanted to be part of something bigger, something that mattered. But this was beyond anything he could have imagined. What do you need me to do? He asked, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. Arya smiled, a small but genuine smile. First, you need to trust me. I can't unlock the energy within you alone. You have to be willing to let go of your fear and open your mind to the possibilities. Ethan took a deep breath, his pulse pounding in his ears. Every instinct told him to run, to hide from the unknown. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this was his moment, his chance to finally understand the restlessness that had plagued him for so long. Okay, he said, his voice stronger now. I'll trust you, but I want answers, real answers. Arya nodded solemnly. You'll have them. But first, we must begin. Without warning, she raised her hand, and the walls around them shifted. The room dissolved into a swirling expanse of light and stars. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he found himself floating in a vast, cosmic sea. The stars pulsed around him, forming patterns and shapes that seemed to reach into his very soul. Then the visions began. Flashes of alien worlds, ancient cities made of light and stone, stars collapsing, and beings of pure energy danced before his eyes. He felt himself pulled deeper into the vastness, as if the universe itself was opening up to him. The energy inside him, something he had never known was there, began to stir. It was overwhelming, but it was also exhilarating. Suddenly, Ethan saw something else, something far darker. A flash of destruction, planets burning, stars going dark, and a shadow looming in the distance. A presence, vast and malevolent, watching him. Ethan gasped, his body jerking as the visions faded. He was back aboard the ship, lying on the smooth floor, breathing heavily. Arya was beside him, her expression unreadable. "What was that?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. Arya's face was grave. "That is what we're up against. The Dracons. They are coming, and if we fail, they will consume everything." Ethan's mind reeled. He wasn't just being asked to help save Arya's world. He was being pulled into something far greater, a conflict that spanned galaxies, a battle for the very fabric of existence. And he was at the center of it. Arya knelt beside him, her voice soft but urgent. "You've begun to awaken, Ethan. But there's more to learn, more to unlock. The Dracons will stop at nothing to take the power within you. They are already searching for us." Ethan's heart pounded. "What happens now?" Arya looked into his eyes, her expression serious. "Now we prepare, and when the time comes, we fight." Days, or what Ethan thought were days, passed in a blur aboard the Unseen. Time seemed fluid within the alien ship, unbound by the natural rhythms of Earth. There was no sunrise or sunset, only the gentle pulse of the ship's glowing walls and the endless expanse of space outside the viewing ports. Ethan felt suspended in a dreamlike state, where reality and the impossible seemed to blend seamlessly. Arya guided him through a series of strange exercises, though exercise felt like the wrong word. It wasn't physical, at least not in the traditional sense. Instead, she focused on helping Ethan unlock something within himself, an energy he still struggled to believe existed. Each day they would sit together in the center of a small chamber filled with floating crystals that hummed softly, their vibrations resonating with the energy Arya claimed was inside him. At first, Ethan had no idea what he was supposed to be doing. He would close his eyes, attempt to focus on the flow, as Arya instructed, but all he felt was frustration. It didn't make sense. He wasn't some mystical being. He was just a normal guy who liked looking at the stars. Yet every time he tried to quit, to declare this whole thing a mistake, something in Arya's gaze stopped him. She believed in him in a way no one else ever had, and it stirred something deep inside him, a yearning to understand why. "You're trying too hard," Arya would say, her voice calm but firm. "The energy isn't something you force. It's something you allow. Let it come to you." Ethan would sigh in frustration, but slowly over the course of their sessions, something began to shift. At first, it was just a faint tingling sensation, like static electricity dancing across his skin. Then, it became something more, an awareness. He could feel it, buried deep within him, like a glowing ember waiting to be ignited. And with each session, the ember grew warmer, brighter. One day, during what felt like their 100th session, it finally happened. Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, his mind focused on the swirling hum of the crystals around him. Arya sat across from him, her presence steady and calm, guiding him with her words. "Let go of your doubts, Ethan. Feel the energy as part of you. It has always been there." For the first time, Ethan truly let go. He stopped trying to force it, and simply allowed himself to drift in the rhythm of the ship's soft hum. He stopped thinking about what he was supposed to feel, and instead focused on what was already there. And then it came, a surge of warmth, starting deep in his chest and spreading out through his limbs. It was subtle at first, like the first rays of sunlight in the morning. But as he opened himself to it, the warmth grew, filling him with a lightness he had never experienced. His body felt weightless, like he was floating not just physically, but in every sense. His eyes snapped open and he gasped. Around him the air shimmered. Tiny specks of light danced in the space between him and Arya, swirling in patterns he couldn't comprehend. His skin tingled with electricity, and he felt the ship respond to him, as if the very structure of the unseen recognized the energy inside him. Arya's eyes widened slightly, but her expression remained calm. "Good," she said softly. "You're starting to connect." Ethan blinked, staring at the glowing tendrils of light that swirled around his hands. He could feel the energy now, moving through him like a current. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice trembling with awe. Arya smiled, her gaze filled with a quiet pride. "This is the power that has been dormant within you. It's a part of the ancient energy my people once harnessed. You are the key, Ethan, the bridge between worlds." Ethan felt a strange sense of clarity in that moment. For so long, he had felt like something was missing from his life, like there was a part of him that he couldn't quite reach. Now, that missing piece was coming into focus. He wasn't just an ordinary human. He was connected to something vast, something ancient. But just as quickly as the realization came, a wave of fear crashed over him. "What does this mean?" he asked, his voice shaking. "What am I supposed to do with this?" Arya's smile faded, replaced by a look of solemn understanding. "You have a choice, Ethan. You can embrace this power and help us save my world, or you can turn away from it and return to your life on Earth. But know this, if you choose to leave, the Drakons will still come for you." The mention of the Drakons sent a chill through Ethan's body. He had heard bits and pieces about them over the last few days, but Arya had been reluctant to share too much. What he did know was that they were an ancient, malevolent race, beings of darkness and destruction who sought control over the same energy that now stirred within him. If they found him, they would use him to fuel their conquests, and countless worlds would be destroyed. "I don't understand why me," Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper. "Why am I so important?" Arya met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. "The energy you carry is unique. It is tied to a force far older than my people, older than the Drakons. It connects to the very fabric of the universe itself. My people once harnessed it to create, to build, and to protect. But the Drakons," she paused, her voice hardening, "they seek to consume it, to bend it to their will. They have destroyed entire worlds in their pursuit of this power, and now they know it is within you." Ethan's stomach twisted. He wasn't just a guy caught up in an alien adventure. He was at the center of a cosmic war. A part of him wanted to run, to escape back to the safety of Earth, to pretend this had never happened. But he knew, deep down, that there was no going back. Just as Ethan opened his mouth to speak, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared throughout the vessel, and the calm, rhythmic hum of the ship turned into a chaotic cacophony of noise. Arya's expression darkened. "They've found us." Before Ethan could ask who, the ship was rocked by another blast. He stumbled, his heart racing. Through the window, he could see flashes of light outside, brilliant bursts of energy in the darkness of space. "The Drakons," Arya said, her voice tight with urgency. "They're here." Ethan's pulse quickened as the ship jerked again. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice rising in panic. Arya's calm demeanor shifted, replaced by a sharp focus. "I need you to stay calm. You're connected to the ship now, Ethan. The energy inside you can help us. You can guide us through this." I don't know how," Ethan stammered, the lights flickering wildly around them. Arya stepped closer, her hands gripping his shoulders firmly. "Yes, you do. You've already started. Trust the connection. Feel the energy around you and guide the ship. I'll handle the rest." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, but Arya's gaze held him steady. She believed in him, truly believed he could do this. He took a deep breath, trying to push past the fear that clawed at his mind. He closed his eyes, reaching out with the energy inside him, just as Arya had taught him. The ship was alive in a way he hadn't noticed before. He could feel it beneath his skin, like a living organism responding to his thoughts. He focused on the energy, allowing it to flow through him, to connect with the ship's systems. Another explosion rocked the unseen, but this time, Ethan felt the ship react instinctively. He willed it to move, to dodge the incoming fire, and to his amazement, it responded. The ship veered sharply, avoiding a barrage of energy blasts from the enemy ships outside. Ethan gasped, his eyes snapping open. "I did it!" Arya smiled, though her expression remained tense. "Good. But we're not out of danger yet. The Dracons won't stop until they've captured you." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as the reality of the situation sank in. He wasn't just learning to control his newfound power. He was fighting for survival, for his life, and for Arya's world. Another blast shook the ship, and Ethan instinctively reached out with his mind, guiding the ship through the chaos of space. He could feel the Dracon ships closing in, their dark, menacing presence like a shadow creeping ever closer. "They're gaining on us," Arya said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to jump to hyperspace." Ethan's mind raced. He had no idea how to do that, but the ship, the connection, seemed to pulse with understanding. He closed his eyes again, focusing on the energy flowing through him, and reached out to the ship's systems. The unseen responded, its engines roaring to life as it prepared for the jump. Just as the Dracons closed in, the stars outside blurred, and with a flash of light, the ship leaped into hyperspace. Ethan collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath, his body trembling from the exertion. He had done it. They had escaped, for now. Arya knelt beside him, her expression a mixture of relief and concern. "You're stronger than you realize, Ethan." But Ethan barely heard her. His mind was still reeling from the realization of what had just happened. He had tapped into something inside him, something far more powerful than he ever thought possible, and it scared him. "I don't know if I can do this," he whispered, his voice shaking. "This is all too much." Arya placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice gentle but firm. "You're not alone, Ethan. I'll be with you every step of the way, but the path ahead will be dangerous. The Dracons won't stop until they've taken the power inside you." Ethan swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling over him. He wasn't just part of this fight. He was the heart of it. And if he failed, it wouldn't just be his life at stake. It would be the universe. The unseen hurtled through the blinding expanse of hyperspace, streaks of light and distant stars blurring past the viewport. The ship's engines hummed with a steady, low pulse, as though the vessel itself was catching its breath after their narrow escape from the Dracons. Inside the control room, however, the atmosphere was anything but calm. Ethan sat slumped against the curved wall of the ship, his body shaking from exhaustion. He had never felt so drained in his entire life. The power inside him, the energy he had barely begun to understand, had nearly overwhelmed him in the heat of the chase. He had guided the ship, felt it respond to his will, but the sheer force of the connection had left him shaken to his core. The power was both a gift and a burden, one that seemed too vast for a human to bear. Arya stood nearby, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the ship's interior. Her expression was calm but tense, the weight of their situation clear in her eyes. She watched Ethan closely, a mixture of concern and determination in her gaze. She could sense his fear, his uncertainty, but she didn't push him. Not yet. "Are we safe now?" Ethan asked, his voice hoarse. He could still feel the echo of the Dracon's presence, their malevolent energy pressing in on him, even though they had left them far behind. Arya's gaze flicked to the control console, where a holographic map of the surrounding star systems flickered in the air. "For now," she said softly, "but they'll find us again. The Dracons don't give up easily, especially not when they know you carry the energy they seek." Ethan's head throbbed. He rubbed his temples, trying to process everything. Just hours ago, days maybe, he had been an ordinary guy, living a quiet, unremarkable life. Now he was the key to a cosmic conflict that spanned worlds, a battle for control over the universe's very essence. It was too much to take in, too much to ask of anyone. "Why me?" he whispered, more to himself than to Arya. "I'm not special. I'm not some hero." Arya moved closer, kneeling down beside him. Her violet eyes softened with empathy, and for the first time Ethan saw a flicker of vulnerability in her. "You didn't choose this, Ethan. I know that. And I can't imagine how overwhelming this must be for you." She paused, searching for the right words. "But whether you feel ready or not, the energy inside you is real, and the universe has chosen you for a reason." Ethan clenched his fists, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to run, to leave all of this behind and go back to his normal life. But deep down, he knew there was no going back. Not after everything he had seen. Not after everything he had felt. "What if I can't control it?" he asked, his voice small. "What if I make things worse?" Arya reached out, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. "You're stronger than you think. I've seen you tap into the energy already. You guided the ship through that battle. You saved us. You're capable of far more than you realize." Ethan looked into her eyes, searching for reassurance. There was no doubt in Arya's gaze, only belief. She truly believed he was the one who could help her save her world. And that belief stirred something inside him, something that felt dangerously close to hope. But then, as if on cue, the ship jolted violently, knocking Ethan and Arya off balance. The walls around them flickered with a dim red light as warning alarms echoed through the cabin. Arya's expression hardened. "They're here." Ethan's stomach dropped. "The Dracons?" Arya nodded grimly, standing quickly and moving to the control panel. Her fingers danced across the holographic controls, bringing up a display of the space around them. A cluster of dark ships, their sleek, predatory forms unmistakable, appeared on the screen. The Dracons had found them, just as Arya had feared. "They're trying to disable the ship," Arya said, her voice tight with urgency. "We can't outrun them this time." Ethan felt a cold dread settle in his chest. He had felt the Dracon's presence during the last encounter, dark, oppressive, and overwhelming. The thought of facing them again filled him with a terror he couldn't shake. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice trembling. Arya turned to him, her expression unreadable. "There's only one way to stop them, Ethan. You have to use the energy inside you." Ethan blinked, his heart pounding in his chest. "What? I don't even know how to use it. I barely managed to control it last time." Arya stepped closer, her gaze intense. "I can guide you, but you have to trust yourself. You have to believe that you can do this. The Dracons won't stop until they have you. And if they succeed, if they take the energy inside you, it will mean the end for my world, and for countless others." Ethan stared at her, his mind reeling. The weight of her words pressed down on him like a suffocating blanket. She was asking him to face the Dracons head-on, to wield a power he didn't fully understand. If he failed, if he made one wrong move, everything could be lost. But if he did nothing, they would all die anyway. Arya's hand touched his arm, her eyes locking onto his. "I believe in you, Ethan. I've seen what you're capable of, and I'll be with you every step of the way. But the choice is yours." Ethan's breath came in shallow bursts. He felt the energy inside him stirring again, like a distant drumbeat growing louder. It was calling to him, urging him to act. He closed his eyes, trying to block out the fear that gnawed at him, and focused on the pulsing rhythm of the power within. For the first time, he allowed himself to embrace it fully. A surge of warmth spread through his body, more powerful than anything he had felt before. The energy crackled beneath his skin, alive and electric, responding to his thoughts. He opened his eyes, and for a moment, he saw the universe differently, like he was part of it, connected to everything around him. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. Arya nodded, her expression fierce. "Good, follow my lead." She moved to the center of the room, standing beneath a large crystal sphere that hovered in the air. Ethan followed, feeling the energy course through him, growing stronger with every step. The ship shook again, the Dracons closing in. He could sense their dark presence, like a storm on the horizon. Arya raised her hand, and the crystal sphere began to glow, casting beams of light across the room. "Focus on the energy," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Feel it flowing through you, connecting with the ship. You can guide it, just like before." Ethan closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. The ship responded instantly, its systems pulsing with the same energy that flowed through him. He could feel the Dracon ships around them, their dark energy pressing in, but he didn't let the fear take hold. Instead, he focused on the light, the power within him, and willed the ship to move. The unseen lurched forward, dodging a barrage of energy blasts from the Dracon's ships. Ethan felt the connection grow stronger, his awareness expanding as he guided the ship through the chaos. He could feel Arya beside him, her presence steady and calm, amplifying his focus. But then, a dark presence surged toward them, stronger than the others, more malevolent. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he sensed it. A Dracon warlord. Its energy was unlike anything he had ever felt, cold, relentless, and overwhelming. "They're going to board the ship," Arya said, her voice tight with fear. "Ethan, you have to stop them, now." Ethan's heart raced. He could feel the warlord's dark energy pressing against him, trying to break through. For a moment, the fear threatened to consume him. But then, something shifted inside him. The energy inside Ethan flared, brighter and more powerful than ever before. He reached out, not just to the ship, but to the universe itself, the vast, endless expanse of stars and galaxies. He could feel the fabric of reality bending around him, the ancient energy pulsing through his veins. And in that moment, he knew what he had to do. Ethan raised his hand, and a brilliant beam of light erupted from his palm, slamming into the Dracon warlord's ship. The dark presence recoiled, its energy faltering as the light consumed it. The Dracon ships around them shuddered, their power waning as Ethan's energy overwhelmed them. With a final surge of light, the Dracon warlord's ship exploded, and the darkness vanished. Ethan collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath, his body trembling from the exertion. The energy inside him faded, but the connection remained, a quiet hum at the back of his mind. Arya knelt beside him, her eyes wide with awe. "You did it," she whispered. "You stopped them." Ethan looked up at her, his body weak but his mind clear. He had done it. He had faced the darkness, and he had won. But he knew this was only the beginning. "I'm ready," he said quietly. "Whatever comes next, I'm ready." Arya smiled, a look of deep admiration in her eyes. "The Dracons will come again, and there will be more battles to fight. But with you, we have a chance." Ethan nodded, the weight of his new reality settling over him. He had made his choice. He wasn't just Ethan Walker, the ordinary human. He was something more now, something connected to the universe in a way he had never imagined. And together, he and Arya would face whatever came next.